convenient for you to not to see the instructor all the time. And
Yes, yes, yes.
so hopefully this will be, I mean, I'll try to put it everything in form of a presentation, and my focus will be more on algorithmic point of view. It's not because uh, I like algorithm, but I think that algorithm will give you the crux of the problem. And once you understand the algorithm, once you understand the logic behind what you're doing, then probably most of the things will become very simple and straightforward. So let me just switch off with your permission. Let me switch off the video, and let me share the presentation. Can you see this?
Yes, sir. It started. Yes.
I hope it is now proper.
Uh, you can press
Yes.
F5, sir. Slideshow.
Yeah. I have started it. Can you see that?
Not in slideshow, sir.
It is in slideshow here.
So
Is it okay?
can you scroll the slides? Means we'll understand that it
Ha,
is in.
ha.
Maybe sometimes we hit the problem that slides do not get scrolled during the discussion. So if once we check it, let's confirm it.
So can you see this? Next slides? No?
No.
No, no, sir, no, sir. Now
Now
it
it
is
is
there.
shown.
Now it is there?
Yeah.
Yes.
But you can't see that slide shown.
Ha.
Now put it in slideshow mode. Can you see that?
Hmm.
No.
So before sharing,
Sorry?
so before sharing, go into the slideshow mode and then share the screen of slideshow.
Okay. I'll do that. Just a minute. Is it okay now? Or still it is the same?
Still it is same, I think.
No, there could be. I think there won't be any problem if I show it in this way. There seems to be some problem. I don't know.
Sir, are you using Chrome browser?
Yes.
Because yesterday we faced the same problem, Firefox and
Hmm.
Chrome. But during the session of Dr. Kokre sir, once
Okay.
we
But
change from Fire,
I'm using Chrome.
yeah. Okay.
I'm using Chrome. Can you see my screen at least?
Yes, yes, now.
So I think with this it can go. There is no problem.
Yes, sir. We can go. Just whenever you change the slide, you just ping us. We got feedback from.
Can you see the change slide? Let me just. No. It is not changing. It is not changing. Sorry. Just a minute. There is some problem. It seems. Once you start that slide mode, no, it gets
Yes.
zoomed on the entire, consumes the entire screen, and you don't have any control then over to sharing the slide. That's the problem. Just a minute, let me check it once again and then. No, no, that is not possible.
Yes, sir. Go one by one slide. No issues, sir.
That is, yeah, that is better because
Yes.
can you see it now?
Yes, sir.
Is it okay now?
Yes.
Do you
Yes.
change? Do you get the change slide?
Yes. Changing
That is
slides.
better, I think, because there could be some problem. I don't know. I hope that we'll start with this. So what is that I'm going to cover today is the clustering algorithms, and we'll be talking little about the optimizations in clustering algorithms. And the two clustering algorithms I'll be covering. Initially, maybe the talk agenda will be like this. We'll be talking about algorithms first, why algorithms are important, and how do you define right from definition of the algorithm, the complexity, and the optimization. And then we'll be looking at the two important algorithms in clustering. First one is k nearest neighbor, KNN algorithm, and the second one is k-means algorithm. And then we'll look at maybe during the discussion itself, we'll look at how we can improve and how do you analyze the quality of these algorithms. Now, as everything is expressed in terms of algorithms, so algorithms have become more important. And if you look at the definitions of the algorithms, um, these are some of the terms which are frequently used in algorithms. So I hope that, and I'm sure that you as a faculty member must have gone through algorithm subject many times. You must have learned that subject, and many of you must have taught this subject. But to cover it in very short terms, maybe the definition of algorithm is nothing but the logic or the way in which we try to solve the problem. That expressing that way in some form is nothing but the algorithm. It is also stated that it is a strategy to solve the problem. The examples of the algorithms, simplest examples could be sorting the given list or matrix multiplication, and most complex algorithms are the weather forecasting algorithms, in which we have lots of logic involved, lots of computations involved, and lot of operations which are involved, lot of modules which are involved. So these are very big algorithms. But basic part of algorithm is how you develop the logic and how you put it in form of these statements, so that once these statements gets executed, you get the result. And what is important for us is we are not just interested in developing the algorithms. Though the algorithm development, logic development is important, we also want to ensure that the way in which we are processing the data is efficient one. Why it is important again is normally in case of your AI application, machine learning, the data which you crunch or the data which is being processed by the machines, the volume of that data is too huge. And uh, handling this much huge data probably will be difficult. Not difficult in terms of processing, but difficulty arises because of the time which is consumed by these algorithms for processing the data. Like for example, if you are training one neural network with some images, and you know that there are a huge number of images available nowadays, and if you want accurate results from these neural networks, what is required is your training data must be sufficient. So that sufficiency of the information or the data is very important factor. And sufficiency means you should have huge number of images available, and those needs to be trained on the computers, on the neural networks, to get the accurate results or to learn something from them, and that learning is later on used for actually getting the results, or say for classification. So number crunching is one of the important thing which becomes a bottleneck for many of the applications. So we need to know how do we compute the performance or the complexities of the algorithms or the logic. Basically, the properties of the algorithms could be expressed in terms of the time which is taken by the algorithm and the space which is consumed by the algorithm. The time taken by the algorithm could be expressed in terms of actual time, like seconds or minutes, whatever. But that is not a correct way, because the execution time depends on which machine you are running or executing the program. If it is a simple computer or if it is simple mobile, then probably it will take longer time than if you execute it on supercomputers or fastest computers in the world. So expressing the execution time in terms of time, actual time, probably will not give you proper idea of how efficient your algorithm is. So what is done is normally it is expressed in terms of the most difficult operations which are used in the algorithm. So we may call them as some critical operations which are being used. So how many times a critical operation is being used by a particular algorithm will tell you uh, the complexity of the algorithm. We'll take the example later on. The second property is the space complexity. Space complexity, as the name indicates, it is the portion of the memory which is consumed by the algorithm. Now, portion of the memory is, we are talking about RAM. Why it is important is because your entire data is required to coexist along with probably the program into the memory, and that is required for processing. So it is also important that how much data or how much memory we consume for storing this data and for manipulation of the data. So space complexity is also important. It is not as important as time, but it is also important, say in particular examples wherein suppose that we want to train the neural network on our mobile. So mobile, of course, nowadays mobile has also have a huge amount of RAMs available, but probably there could be some systems, like say IoT devices with cameras installed, which will have very limited RAMs available. So there, this space complexity is important fact. Of course, we are not worried about space complexity. As I said, we are more worried about the execution time or the complexity of the algorithm. So we want to reduce this execution time as we want to make it as small as possible. And so given the algorithm, we always talk of algorithm in terms of the complexity, and the complexity is expressed in terms of, as I said, the most complex operations which are used. So for example, if you're talking about sorting algorithms, then the most important operation or a must operation in sorting is sorting can be performed by comparing the elements. So probably we can think of this comparison as one of the important operation. And if you compute the complexity in terms of number of comparisons carried out, of course, it is not the only operation. You may say if you're using some loops or iterations or recursions, you may require some additions or multiplications kind of operations also. But those operations are very little compared to compare operation. And compare is said to be one of the most important operations for sorting. So we express the complexities of sorting algorithms based on the number of times the elements are compared. So if you have been given, say, n numbers to sort, we always talk in terms of n, because that's the size of the element, and we talk of how many times we compare these elements. Say, for example, if you take an example of bubble sort, it is the complexity is n square. And what that n square specifies or tells you is number of times you're using comparison operation. So you're using comparison for n square times, and what that n specifies is the size of the list, or say the size of the number of items which you are to sort. So for every algorithm, we always try to tune that algorithm, and that tuning is nothing but trying to reduce the complexity or trying to reduce the number of comparison operations. Similarly, for if you take another example, that is matrix multiplication kind of algorithm, then probably matrix multiplication has got a complexity of n cube. Now the unit of this is slightly different, because there in matrix multiplication, what is important is how many times you are multiplying elements. Okay, so you will see that for matrix multiplication, that is multiplying two matrices of size n by n together, it will require n cube number of computations, and these computations are element multiplications. Okay, so that's why it is said that the complexity is n cube. Now these are expressed in terms of what is called as one notation that is called as big O. So big O actually specifies the upper limit, or it is the maximum number of operations which are required. Similarly, similar to this big O, we also have notations like omega and theta and so on. So of course, we are not going in details of that, but big O is a standard notation which will give you upper bound on number of times the operation is used. Okay, so it will be number of operations will be always less than that whatever complexity you are specifying. Now, so we always talk of complexity of the algorithm, and hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir, audible. Have you changed slides, sir?
Not yet. I need to just cover the last element, that is the computational complexity of the algorithm.
Okay, okay. It is on slide
We
number
also
3.
have some. Yeah, it is slide number 3. So complexity of the algorithm, some of the algorithms are called as NP hard algorithms. That is, the complexities are expressed in terms of exponentials, right? A raised to n raised to a. So n raised to a is always exponential algorithm. So we normally try to avoid those kinds of algorithms. And as I said, in the race of reducing the execution time, we look for the fastest hardware. So maybe we try to or prefer to execute our algorithms on fastest available hardware. And many times the hardware specification is given in terms of how many operations, that is floating point operations, it can perform. So fastness of the hardware or the computational system is expressed in terms of flops, that is floating point operations per second. And normally these terms are gigaflops or petaflops or teraflops or exaflops and so on and so forth. You'll get the details of what are the fastest machines available in the list called as top 500. So this is just a background of what we are ultimately looking at and what is our aim of developing the algorithm, so that we get the results as fast as possible. Now let us concentrate on the way in which we actually develop the algorithm, and possibly we'll be looking at the two examples of these algorithms. This is what I said: time complexity and space complexity. So what is more worrisome for us is the quality of the algorithm, and this quality is always in terms of the complexity. Now again, as far as artificial intelligence is concerned, because when we talk of the clustering algorithms, it is part of machine learning or artificial intelligence. So this is what the relationship between the different terms which we frequently used in AI. So AI is probably the bigger sphere, and that sphere we have machine learning. It empowers the computer systems with the ability to learn, and in that making attempt in making computer system to learn itself, we have another sphere called as deep learning. The deep learning, as you know, as you might be aware, that deep learning is having more number of hidden layers, so that the learnability increases, and your result, the quality of the result also enhances. Okay. So as far as machine learning, if you concentrate on that machine learning, you'll find that there are different types, like supervised learning, which consists of target and outcome variable. Supervised is somebody saying that whether whatever result you are getting is right or not, whatever. And based on that, so it is like somebody is holding your hand and telling that this is right, this is wrong, this is correct, this is improper, this is good, this is better, whatever. So it generates a function that maps inputs to the desired output. The examples of the machine learning algorithms are regression, decision tree, random forest, KNN. So this KNN is one of the important supervised learning kind of algorithm example. Then logistic regression. In case of unsupervised learning, probably we don't have any idea of which category a particular sample belongs to. So there is no any target or outcome variable to predict or estimate. That is used for clustering the population in different groups. So if you don't know anything about the population, if you don't know anything about the statistics of or the properties of the data, then probably we will go for these kinds of algorithms. The examples of priori algorithms and k-means algorithms. Third type of thing is reinforcement learning, in which the machine is trained to make specific decisions. The trains itself continuously using trial and error, and then captures the best possible knowledge. And example of this is Markov decision process. So as I said, that we'll be covering KNN and k-means. So these two belongs to two different categories. Like first one, that is KNN, belongs to a supervised learning, and k-means belongs to unsupervised learning. Important difference is KNN, we know everything, and we have some hand holding kind of thing, in which everybody knows what the output should be, and based on that we actually train the machine. And in unsupervised learning, the information or knowledge about the groups or clusters is almost zero, and the machine actually builds everything on its own. So it's like a person who is sitting in at a remote location, he tries to learn. So we can call it as development from scratch, okay, with no prior knowledge. So he or she does it independently. So that is what unsupervised learning is. So we'll be basically concentrating on clustering algorithms. There are two types of clustering algorithms. One is partitioning algorithms. Again, there are two categories: k-means and spectral clustering. And second category is hierarchical algorithms: bottom-up, algomorative, and top-down divisive. Okay, so let us now start with the k nearest neighbor, that is KNN algorithm. KNN algorithm. So what is given, you can just look at the screen, this is the scenario in which we already have some groups of students, and then if a new entrant is there, late admission, probably late admitted student has come and he wants to join one of the existing groups. Now how do you decide to which group he should join? Now normally, in most of the cases, we expect that the groups are homogeneous and all the properties of individual students in a group are almost identical. So we expect that he should join a group to which he belongs to, or to which he is very close to with respect to the property, different properties. So these different properties could be anything. It could be like the property may include whether he is male or female. The property could include what is the age of that person. The property could include what is his mother tongue. The property could include where is he where is he or she from. The property could include any other aspect. So based on that, I just want to put that or include that person, the new entrant, into a particular group. So in short, it is tell me about you. You tell me about what is your background, and I'll tell you to which group you belong to, or to which group I'll be putting you in. Okay, so that's a simple question which is being asked by probably a teacher, and then that the category or group of that student, newly admitted student, is decided. So tell me about you, and I'll tell you which group you belong to. Okay. Now instead of teacher taking this decision, now this decision is being taken by the algorithm known as K nearest neighbor. So given all this data, given the information about how many groups you have, how many students you have, what are the properties you're considering, taking into consideration, and all this information about the newly entrant, this algorithm will take that information as an input, and then it will provide you to which group this particular newly entrant belongs to. Okay, I hope that it is clear. So let us look at the features of KNN. These are some of the features. All instances corresponds to point in n-dimensional Euclidean space. That is, these could be considered as properties or attributes of individual. So there could be n dimensions of, or n properties or n attributes of individual, and we may consider them as in Euclidean space. Why in Euclidean space is basically we just want to compute the distances, how far they are from each other, and these distances can be computed using the Euclidean distance formula. Second is the classification is delayed till the new instance arrives. So no classification is carried out unless and until the new instance, new person comes. When the new person comes, then we actually look at to which group he is closer, and then he is assigned to that particular group. The classification done by comparing the feature vectors of the different points. So what we do here is we consider the feature vectors, the difference between the feature vectors, and based on the outcome of that difference, we decide to which group the new sample belongs to. A target function may be discrete or real value. Now these are some of the formulas which are used for computing the distances. Of course, you may choose whatever is applicable to you, or whatever is most suitable for your application. Normally, Euclidean distance formulation or formula is being used for computing the distance. So it is basically x1 xi square minus yi square, the square of that, and then we use this as and then we take a square root of all these things together. So it is called as Euclidean distance. You may use Manhattan distance or Minkowski distance for computing the distances, and then those distances are ultimately used for computing the final distance. So if you take a simple example of one nearest neighbor, now this K nearest neighbor, it's very important to note that K specifies to how many samples you are comparing your input sample. Okay, so if it is one nearest neighbor, what it will do is it will check the nearest point to the current point. Okay, the nearest point to the current. Like for example, in the diagram you'll see that the circle is actually a new circle, new entrant. Okay, the sample which is shown, the dark circle, is the new entrant, and then if it is one nearest neighbor, it will be checked with the closest point of that. Now the closest point here is something like a disk, right? Something like a disk, and this, can you see the pointer on the screen? Hello?
Yes,
Am I
sir.
audible?
Yes.
Can you see this?
Yes, sir.
Can
Yes,
you
sir.
see so this pointer indicates that it is a disk, and disk point is unknown point, and this is now closer to the disk. So we'll say that this belongs to, or this will have a category of which category of the disk, okay, which is probably wrong. Okay, then three nearest neighbor, this is the problem. See, this is coming because of that. Okay, let me shift it, see, possibly. Sorry. Anyway, so three nearest neighbor is, again, this is the spot, this is the unknown point, and we try to see what are the three nearest points to this. Okay, so three nearest point, out of them most of the points are the disk. So I'll say that this unknown point belongs to the category of disk. Okay, so we have two categories here. One is a circle and one is a disk. We'll be looking at these examples in detail. We'll be taking one example. Okay. So these are some of the properties of k nearest neighbor. An arbitrary instance is represented by a1x, a2x, a3x, and so on and so forth. So these are the properties of the instance. Okay, every instance. AIX denotes the feature, that is the properties or attribute. The Euclidean distance between two instances are to be computed. That is this unknown instance and all the known instances. So dxi is computed as square root of sum of squares. Okay, and that you do for every attribute. So this is a continuous value target function, and the mean value of k nearest training examples are considered. So this is how it will look like. The classification is based on the distance decides the nearest k samples and belongs to the class to which maximum amount of k belongs. Say for example, if you take this star as the unknown sample, and if you are using say three nearest neighbor, then you'll see that these 3 points are closer. So what you need to do is you need to actually compute the distance of this point, the unknown point, with every point in the sample. Okay, and out of that you should take the 3 which are closer. So these are the 3 points which are closer. Now because they belong to similar category, that is if the category is of circle, then we say that this point also belongs to the category of circle. Okay, so that is what it's very simple, but it is very, this algorithm is very simple, straightforward, but this is very useful algorithm in machine learning. Okay, we'll be taking one example of this, as I said. Yeah, important question here is how to select or how to choose the value of k. Now if you take the value of k as very small, then it becomes very sensitive, very much sensitive to the noise points. So there could be as far as your data is concerned, there could be some noise involved in your data. So it is possible that if you take value of k as 1 or 2, then probably your result will have adverse effect because of the noise which is present in the data. So it is advisable that you should select appropriate value of k. So normally the value of k is taken as larger one, so that we try to actually see the difference between this point and most of the points rather. But if you take the value as too huge, okay, value of k is too huge, almost equal to n, that is number of points which are present, then probably it increases the computations unnecessary, because you're supposed to group that point into appropriate group. So what you're doing basically is you're comparing that with every other point, so that will take huge amount of time. So it is always better that you should select the value of appropriate value of k. So there is a thumb rule which says that normally the value of k should be less than square root of n, where total n is the number of samples which are present. So if I have total n data available, then the value of k in kn should be equal to, should be less than, actually, it should be less than the square root of n, square root of n. But this is very important decision which one need to take. Okay, so this is again further improvement in KNN. What can be done is we can think of because see, look at the process in the entire algorithm. What we have done is we have used different attributes, and while computing the distance, we have used the Euclidean space. Euclidean space, what it does is basically it considers everything at the same scale. Okay, so if your attribute is say date of birth, or if your attribute is say the language spoken, and the other attribute is say the percentage. So there is no direct relation between these two things. So they are completely from different domains. These attributes are completely from different domains. So you cannot consider them as it is without any scaling. So it is always better that you should assign some weight to these different attributes and then take their distance, take its effect into the distance. Okay. So here on the screen, you will see that there is a formula which includes the term WK. So this WK is the weight which needs to be assigned to a particular attribute, kth attribute. Okay. So if it is age, which is important for us, if I feel that it is important for us, maybe your weight factor for that age could be higher. If it is some other, say height of the person, if that height is not important for me, so I can assign a less weight factor to that particular height. So for different attributes, if we can assign different weights, then probably this classification will be more better, okay, in terms of quality. So we can use our prior knowledge about these features and then decide these weights. Okay, there is also this process can also be done by cross validation using different methods and then checking whether the weights which are being assigned are proper or not. There are some strengths and weaknesses. Let us look at them. So as far as strengths are concerned, as you know, this process of KNN is very simple and it's very intuitive, very straightforward, vanilla kind of process, vanilla kind of algorithms, and it yields very good result comparatively compared to all other algorithms which exist. Okay, these can be applied for data from any distribution, so it can be applied to the data in any domain, any distribution. It gives you a good classification if the number of sample points are large enough. So if your sample points are large enough, of course it depends on what kind of data you are applying these results and what kind of technique you are using. So if you're using some different modified methods of, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry if I receive any call, it gets disturbed. So I'm sitting near the phone, but it sometimes disturbs you. Sorry for that. So what I was saying is it depends on what kind of method you're using and what kind of domain you are applying this KNN. Okay. So as stated, good classification can be achieved if you have a large number of samples available. As far as weaknesses of this KNN are concerned, it takes more time to classify. Of course, particularly if the value of k is huge, then probably it takes a lot of time. And if your data samples are very complex, multi-dimensional data kind of thing, then it takes a lot of time. It need to calculate and compare the distances from new example to all other example, new samples to all other samples. Similarly, selecting the value of k is also very tricky. It involves lots of mechanisms, lots of processes, and then probably through some processes it gets evolved, and then you can say that this is the proper value of k. By and large, as I said, the thumb value says that square root of n should be used as k. Similarly, it needs large number of samples for accuracy. So you need to have more number of samples if you want proper accuracy of the results. Okay. So these are some of the pros and cons of using KNN algorithm. I think I'll stop presentation and I'll show you one simple example, which of course I have done with the help of a simple Excel sheet, and that will give you idea of how it can be used or how it can be applied for the sample data. Okay, so I'll just stop sharing this presentation and I'll share that example. Can you see this? Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Can you read
Please
the text on the screen? Sorry?
maximize, sir. Please maximum. Yeah. Now it is visible, sir.
Now it's okay.
Okay.
So this is a simple example in which some data is given to you. Some names are given. Of course, I have just taken the names as because I prepared it just in the morning. So I just taken some names as ABCD. Then I have considered the age of these people, then sex of these people, and the sports they like. Okay. So there are 3 sports I have considered. I just prepared this particular data. So this is just random data. So normally what happens is if you have random data, then so this is artificially created data. Okay, so what happens is your results, you will not be able to prove the effectiveness of your results. But if you take normal data, actual data, then probably you will find that there is a lot of use, lot of significance of these algorithms. Okay, I'll just try to show you what is the process. So for process point of view, I think the efficacy of the output is not important. So what I want to do here is I have been taken some anyway, serial number, that column has not come. So I have taken the data for 12 people, and the data is in terms of the name of the person, the age of the person, the sex of the person, male or female, and the sports he or she likes. Okay. So just as I said, this is very important to know that this data is completely artificial data. It's a random data which is picked randomly and put it in the different cells. Okay. What I want to do is there is one more person who has entered recently. That person, name of that person is X. I know some of the properties, like his age is 31 and he is a male. I just want to know what is the possibility that what kind of sports he will be interested in. Okay, so these are the sports which are available, like cricket, football, and tennis. These are the 3 sports which are available, and this is a group of people who play these kinds of sports or who like these kinds of sports. And I have a new entrant named X, and I want to know what kind of sports he could probably like out of these 3. Okay, so that is my simple question. So the best method to use here is the K nearest neighbor, KNN. And again, if you look at the total number of the value of n, it is 12. So I can say that it is very close to square root of that is very close to 3. So probably 3NN, 3, that is KNN, where K is value of K is 3, probably will give me the best results. Okay. So what I will do is, first of all, I need to convert whatever data I have in form of some numerical data. So particularly the sex data is in form of text data. So text data probably it will be difficult for me to process that data. So what I will do is I'll convert that into some kind of numeric data. So maybe I can replace M by 0 and or M by 1 and F by 0, female by 0 and male by 1. So what will happen to that data? It will look like this now. Can you see this?
Yes, sir.
I hope you can see it. Yeah. So here again, I just repeated the data. The name, age, sex, sports is all repeated. And in the column sex, you'll observe that now it is being replaced. The male is being replaced by 1 and the female is being replaced by 0. Now what I need to do is, the method says that you want to compute the difference or the distance between the unknown sample, that is X, and each one of these samples. Okay, so I'll compute the difference, and then I'll take the square of the difference. Okay, so I'll take the age of this person A, and I'll subtract the age of this person X from it, and then take the square of it. So for example, let me just show you what formula I used. I just took, say, D20, that is this age. Then I subtracted this value 31 from it and took a square of it. Okay, so the difference, square of the difference, basically square of the difference is 9 here. I did it for all. Again, for this B, I have taken this 25, then I subtracted this 31 from it and then took the square of it. So it is 6 square, that is 36. So I did it for all these samples. So this is the difference as far as the age is concerned, or the square of the difference as far as age is concerned. I did the same for this sex. But I've taken the sex of A being male as 1. The sex of this is 1. So subtract 1 from 1 and take the square of that. You will get it as 0. Similarly, here it is 0 means it is 0 minus 1. Square of that will be 1, and so on and so forth. So again, we'll see that it is like this. Okay, I'm sorry, I should have done it using Python, but I thought that this is the best and fastest way of doing it instead of using Python. Of course, I'll try to use it maybe next time, because it is all required to be processed and executed and demonstrated using Python. But the process remains same. Programming language is not very much important. What is important here is the process, the algorithm, or the logic of the algorithm. Okay, so what I did here in these two columns is I have just taken the square of the attributes, square of the difference of the attributes. Okay, so this is for age and this is for sex. So I call it as distance of X from these samples. Okay, now what I will do is because I want to combine it somewhere, so I will take the addition of these two and take the square of this. So this 9 plus 0 and square root of that, not square root of that. So it says that, see, square root of G7 plus H7, this plus this. Similarly, I do it for the rest of the samples. So I computed now the square root, that is, now this becomes a Euclidean distance between the samples which are available and the unknown sample. Okay, so these are the distances which are computed. Now, there is no unit because these parameters are completely different. Sex and age, they are not related. So there is no any unit for this distance. Okay, so I computed this. Now the next or the final phase is to apply that KNN. So let us look at how we do it. Yeah, show everything. So again, I repeated, I just copied everything, and I copied the while copying this, sorry, I need to reduce the size. what I did is, compared to the previous slide, what I did is, now I have sorted all the records. All these records are sorted based on the distances, increasing value of distances, or ascending value of the distances, detour. Okay, so you'll see that it is sorted, all the records are sorted. So you'll see that the order has changed. The order of these names has changed. Okay, so these orders, these records, all these are rows are the records. These records are sorted based on the value of D. Okay, in increasing order. Okay, now suppose, as I said, I would like to use the KNN algorithm with the value of KS3. So what I'm doing basically here is, for the first 3 samples, that is the samples which are very close, samples which are very close to this unknown sample, samples which are very close to this unknown sample, I just want to know what are their categories. Okay, so sample number 1 belongs to cricket, or this person likes cricket, the second person likes tennis, and the third person likes tennis. So I just taken the count of all these persons. So out of these 3, 1 person likes cricket and 2 persons like tennis. So as far as the category of this unknown sample is concerned, it is the category of the persons which is the best amongst all of this. That is the highest value, which is tennis in this case. The highest value is tennis in this case, which is 2. So the category of this person will be tennis. It will be tennis. So this is what the KNN algorithms output will look like. KNN algorithms output will look like. Okay. Now, if this value happens to be 5, then what I'll be doing is, I'll be taking the first 5 samples. I'll be considering the first 5 sorted samples here, and then I'll be looking at their categories. So the next, if I take the next 3, they are also next 2. One of them is tennis and other is cricket. So cricket count will be 2 and tennis will be 3. This will be 2, this will be 3. So again, if you take 5 NN or KNN with value of KS5, then still the category of this will be the one which is having highest value, that is 3. So this will be still tennis. So as you increase the value of K, probably you will get the better and better result and accurate results. Okay. Okay. So so this is basically one of the example, and as stated earlier, in this example we have seen that the attributes which are considered, like the attributes like age and sex is being considered, they are not related to each other, and while converting them into the numeric figures, I've used a simple yardstick, like M is being converted into 1 and F is being converted as 0. I could have done something else also, but it is possible that by changing the yardstick, probably the results could have changed. Okay, the results could have changed. Like for example, if I take this as 1 or 10 and this as say 5, then it is possible that this may change. Okay, it's because you are assigning something to them and you are saying that the weight of that is being changed. So it's very important that we should use the weight factors also, depending on if you feel that the sex is important for deciding the sports, likelihood of sports, then you should assign some weight to that. So that becomes a modified version of KN. Similarly, in this case, we only have 2 attributes. In actual examples, actual problems, we could have almost hundreds of such attributes assigned to every sample. In that case, computing the distances will be very complex. It will take huge amount of time in computing the distances, and these distances are to be computed for every sample available, and then probably you need to sort them, and then depending on the value of K, you are deciding which samples you're using and their category is being used. Okay, so this way the example on the algorithm, basically KNN algorithm is very simple and straightforward, and this is widely used and widely accepted in the field of machine learning in AI. Okay, so it's almost 11:40, 11:50. So I'll keep some time for question and answer. If you have questions, the session is open for you. Yes, let me just start my camera. And I think that the other algorithm, that is K-means algorithm, will be covered once we stop, we complete that, or once this session is over, in the next session.
Yeah, participant can put your questions in the chat box, or you can ask directly to the sir.
Sir, good morning, sir. Sir, good morning.
Yes.
Is it audible, sir?
Just 1 minute, sir. I think left out from the session.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, Rajkumar sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good morning, sir. Sir, is it audible?
Just 1 minute. Kulkarni sir, are you there?
Yes, now it's okay.
Rajkumar sir, please.
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir.
Yes, good morning.
Yes, sir. Sir, actually, in learning, they are using two different terms, parametric learning and non-parametric. What these two terms mean, sir? And KNN is which one? Sir?
Okay. Rajkumar sir, please type your questions in chat box. I think,
Okay,
sir.
sir. Okay, thank you.
Some issue with audio.
Okay, sir. Okay. Okay.
Hello,
Yes, sir.
am
We
I
can
audible
hear.
now?
Yes, now audible, sir.
Yeah. So there was a question regarding parametric and non-parametric.
Yes, sir.
Hello. So this
Yes.
this K-NN is non-parametric. Parametric basically in the examples wherein we have the attributes which can be defined properly. They are called as parametric. So this is basically lazy kind of classification. As I indicated, as I said that the unknown sample is available, and once it is available, then we try to form, or then we try to compute the distances of these samples with the other existing samples. So it is also called as lazy kind of this method. Okay, so this is basically non-parametric.
Sir, another question I have from Deepika madam. What if we have units and units are different for these two parameter?
Sorry, what is the question? I did not.
So,
What is
just
the?
you have explained this example, this age and
Yes.
sex. So question is that what if we have units and these units are different for these two parameters?
That's what I said. If the parameters are completely independent of each other, then probably combining them in form of some formula and then computing the distances will not give you proper results. So what you need to do is the parameters have to be same. I mean, the attributes of unknown sample and known sample must be same. If you don't have attributes of the unknown sample, some of the attributes of unknown sample, then probably you will not be able to get the proper results again. It will impact the results. It will impact the quality of the output. So what is important is your number of attributes and the type of attributes must be same while computing the distances. And in addition to that, you need to assign some weights to each one of these categories or each one of these attributes, depending on your requirement, depending on your application. And then you may get proper results. And that too, you need to test it for different values of k. You need to check it for different values of k. And then you should decide what is the, by thumb rule says that it is the value of root n is the proper for k. But many times you need to do it on your own, do it for simple, for different values of k near that square root of n, and then take the one which is appropriate.
So there is another question.
Yeah.
From Sachin sir. In KNN, is accuracy depends on quality of data?
Yes, it depends on quality of data. But if you really want a good quality result, then probably the data size must be large enough. Now, particularly what happens is if you take or if it is outlier, say if you have outlier in the set, in the given set, then probably you may not get an accurate result. Okay, so that will impact your outcome. So as far as possible, you should increase the data set. If your data set is large enough, then probably the value of k will also be large, and that will give you proper results.
Okay. Sir, another one question. Overlap data set, which is the best algorithm? KNN and k means will not give good performance.
Yeah, KNN and k means, as I said, KNN is the algorithm wherein you are actually deciding the group or the cluster of unknown sample. Whereas k means what you're doing is you have all unknown samples. You don't know what groups they belong to, and you are creating the groups out of the given samples. That is KNN. That is k means. Of course, we'll be looking at that k means later on in detail. But that k means is more interesting and more complex also compared to KNN. KNN is very simple, straightforward kind of algorithm.
Okay. Rajkumar sir asking, is it used for regression or only classification?
It is only used for classification. Basically, it is used for classification. It is used to decide the class of the unknown sample.
Okay.
Regression is slightly complex process again. Here, what we're doing is we are just, as I said, we are just deciding the class, and we know that there are some classes already there, and we cannot create a completely new class out of this particular sample. Okay, so we can just categorize it to a particular class, existing class.
Okay. Is there any questions from participants? You can ask directly by unmute yourself.
Yes, yes. Now, the important question here, which probably we haven't answered, is what is the complexity? What could be the complexity? So, what do you think will be the complexity of this particular method?
Yes, sir.
So what is the idea? Can you just use your chats for inputting the complexity?
Yes, participant, please put your
Participants, yeah, you are requested to just. What do you think could be the complexity of this method or this algorithm? So this complexity now can be computed in terms of, say, for example, how many times you are computing the distances. So it could be in terms of distance computations. So taken a sample or given a sample, how many distance computations are required?
Okay, any answer from participants?
Maybe we can give some time to them to think over it, and then I'll explain once we rejoin for the next session.
Okay, 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 no issue.
Okay.
So, can I take a break for lunch, sir?
Yes, I think what is the next the timing for the next slot?
1 p.m. sir.
1 p.m. One
Yes.
1 hour. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So participant, think over the questions that sir has been asked, and we'll again meet in the afternoon session, that is at 1 p.m. Okay. Yes.
All
Yes.
right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll put feedback link here. As well as sir, are you there? Please repost the link. Yes, Rajkumar sir, the question is that how many times we need to compute the distances in KNN? Means what is the complexity of this algorithm? So that question raised by the sir. So means you need to talk about the complexity of this algorithm. Yes, we can discuss, ma'am, this in next session, that is at 1 p.m.